The desert nights in Nevada hold a silence all their own, heavy, endless, and deeply unsettling. It's the kind of quiet that makes you feel like the last person on Earth. At 2:37 a.m., Lauren Meyers, a 29-year-old attendant at the desolate Silver Creek rest stop, poured herself another cup of stale, bitter coffee. The only sounds were the buzzing fluorescent lights overhead, flickering in the empty store and the distant, lonely hum of the highway. Working the night shift was supposed to be boring. Lonely for sure, but scary. Not until this week. It all started 3 nights ago. And Lauren was idly watching the security cameras when she noticed something wrong. A white pickup truck had pulled into the lot at exactly 1:12 a.m. A man got out, walked into the men's restroom, and then just never came out. Lauren replayed the footage again and again. There were no glitches, no cuts in the video. The man walked in and simply vanished from existence. At first, she chalked it up to exhaustion. Maybe she'd blinked and missed him leaving. It happens. But the very next night, it happened again. This time, it was a woman in a bright red jacket. She went to the vending machine area, bought a soda, and then disappeared somewhere between the camera frames. The footage showed her walking towards the exit, but the automatic door never opened. She was there 1 second and gone the next. Lauren tried telling her coworker Dale about it during their shift change. He just laughed it off, barely looking up from his phone. "Probably just a bad camera loop. Low," he said, waving a dismissive hand. "This place is ancient. The tech's probably fried." But Lauren knew what she saw. It wasn't a glitch. A cold knot of dread had been tightening in her stomach ever since, a gut feeling screaming that something was fundamentally wrong with this place. And now, tonight, the pattern was repeating itself. A sleek silver sedan had pulled up about 15 minutes ago. A man in a gray hoodie got out and walked with a steady, unhurried pace toward the restrooms. Lauren waited, her eyes glued to the monitor, her heart thumping a nervous rhythm against her ribs. 1 minute passed, then 5, then 10. No sign of him. The rest stop was an island of light in a sea of darkness, and there was absolutely no one else around. She leaned closer to the screen, her own reflection trembling in the flickering light of the monitor. Come on," she whispered, her voice a dry rasp. She rapidly cycled through each camera feed, her eyes darting across the screens, searching for any sign of movement, any explanation. Nothing. The parking lot was empty, the hallways were still. It was like he had been erased. Then, suddenly, camera 4, the one pointed directly at the restroom entrance, went completely black. A harsh wave of static filled the small screen, a loud crackling hiss that made Lauren jump. Just as she was about to dismiss it as another equipment failure, an image flickered onto the screen for a single, terrifying second. It wasn't the rest stop. It was a dim, narrow corridor with damp, gray cement walls. The sound of faint, rhythmic dripping echoed from somewhere deep within. And at the far end of the hallway, a figure was standing there, a dark silhouette, perfectly still, watching the camera. Watching asterisk her asterisk. Lauren's coffee mug slipped from her numb fingers, shattering on the cold tile floor with a crash that echoed the fracturing of her composure. Her breath hitched in her throat. Her eyes, wide with terror, shot back up to the live feed of the main entrance, and her heart stopped. The man in the gray hoodie was standing right outside the glass door of the convenience store, not 10 feet away from her. His face was hidden in the shadows of his hood, but she didn't need to see his eyes to know he was staring right in at her. He had been there the whole time. The camera hadn't glitched. He had known she was watching. Shaking, Lauren fumbled for her phone, her fingers clumsy and slick with sweat. She had to call for help. But as she looked down at the phone, a new notification lit up the screen. It was a text message from an unknown number. Her blood ran cold as she read the single, chilling sentence, "We know you see us." She looked back up at the door. The man was gone. But a new, more profound terror washed over her. It wasn't just him. There were more. Her mind raced, trying to piece it all together. The vanished people, the impossible corridor, the man outside her window. This wasn't a haunting. This wasn't a prank. This was something else. Something organized. She remembered Dale's casual dismissal, his lack of concern. Was he just oblivious, or was he part of it? Paranoia was a poison, seeping into every thought. She couldn't trust anything or anyone. Then, another text came through. This one had an attachment to short video file. With a trembling finger, she pressed play. The video was from a camera angle she didn't recognize. It was looking down at her, from the corner of the ceiling inside the store. It was a live feed. They were inside with her. They were watching her right now. A strangled gasp escaped her lips as she slowly, fearfully lifted her head to look at the corner of the ceiling. There was no camera there, but she felt it. She felt their eyes on her. The store's front door chimed. Lauren's head snapped toward the sound. A new customer had just walked in. It was a young woman, maybe a college student, looking tired from a long drive. She smiled politely at Lauren. "Just need to use the restroom," she said, her voice cheerful. As the woman walked past the counter, Lauren's eyes fell to the woman's wrist. There, tattooed in small, neat letters, was a sequence of numbers. 112. The exact time the first man had disappeared. It wasn't a random event. It was a schedule. And the next appointment had just arrived. Lauren was no longer just an attendant. She was now part of the mystery, a witness they couldn't afford to let go. The quiet desert night was no longer empty. It was filled with unseen watchers, and the Silver Creek rest stop was their stage. Thank you so much for joining me on this terrifying journey tonight. If you enjoyed this story, please hit that like button and consider subscribing for more tales from the shadows. Let me know in the comments what you think is really happening at the Silver Creek rest stop. Stay safe out there, and I'll see you in the next video. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today we re-diving into a story that will make you think twice the next time you on a lonely road late at night. Imagine this. You're working the graveyard shift at a remote gas station, the kind where the silence is only broken by the hum of the fluorescent lights. That's where we find our main character, Lauren. It's a night like any other, until it isn't. Lauren is tidying up behind the counter, the clock ticking slowly towards dawn. The movement outside catches her eye. Standing by the pumps, just beyond the reach of the overhead lights, is a figure. A man, she thinks. His face is completely hidden in the deep shadow of his hoodie, but she doesn't need to see his eyes to feel them. She can feel his gaze, steady, cold, and utterly unblinking. It's a stare that doesn't just see her, it dissects her. He isn't moving, he isn't speaking, he's just waiting. It's a chill, colder than the night air, crawls up her spine. Her body locks up, her breath hitched in her throat. The fluorescent lights above the counter flicker, and for a terrifying split second, the glass reflects her own wide, panicked eyes back at her. When she dares to look back towards the pumps, he's gone, vanished. There was no sound of footsteps on the gravel, no creak of a car door. It's just an empty space where he stood moments before. Her heart is hammering against her ribs like a trapped bird. Her hand, trembling uncontrollably, fumbles for the old landline phone behind the counter. She needs to call Dale, her coworker, who was supposed to take over the next shift. Anything to hear a friendly voice, to ground herself in reality. She dials his number, the familiar clicks and beeps now sounding alien and loud in the crushing silence. The line connects, but the ringing tone is wrong. It's stuttered, distorted, like a corrupted audio file. Then it just stops. Dead silence on the other end. "Dale," she whispers, her voice barely audible. "Are you there?" For a moment, nothing. Then, a low hum starts to build through the receiver, followed by a sound she can't quite place. Like someone breathing slowly, deliberately, right into the phone. And then a voice replies. A voice that is mangled and warped, digital and monstrous. "He's not coming tonight, Lauren." She drops the receiver as if it's burned her, clatters against the counter, the sound echoing in the now silent store. A wave of pure, undiluted terror washes over her. That voice, it knew her name. Her eyes dart around the small store, searching for any sign of intrusion, any logical explanation. They land on the bank of security monitors on the wall. They're her eyes and ears to the outside world tonight. She scans them frantically. Camera 1, the pump's empty. Camera 2, the storefront clear. Camera 3, the back lot, nothing. But then her gaze falls on camera 4. It's the one pointed down that long, strange windowless corridor that leads to the public restrooms. The feed is flickering with static, just like it was earlier. But this time, it's different. Through the snowy interference, she can make out faint shapes, forms, Figures, maybe. They look like people, standing unnaturally still, deep inside that dark hallway. Icy dread grips her. They weren't there before. It's panic as a rising tide threatening to drown her. Get out, her mind screams. Just get out and drive. She grabs her flashlight from under the counter and snatches her car keys from the hook. Every instinct is telling her to run, to not look back. She pushes the door open and steps out into the night. The air is heavy, unnaturally still. The familiar, distant hum of the highway has completely vanished, replaced by a low, echoing sound, like wind rushing through a deep tunnel. It seems to be coming from everywhere and nowhere at once. With a shaking hand, she points her flashlight towards the restroom building at the edge of the lot. The beam cuts a sharp, lonely path through the oppressive darkness, finally landing on the men's restroom door. Her blood runs cold. The door is wide open. It's never, ever left open at night. It's against every rule. Every rational thought tells her to get in her car and leave. But a small, nagging voice, maybe the last shred of her professional duty, or maybe something more morbid, pushes her forward. What if someone is hurt inside? What if it's Dale, playing some kind of sick prank? Hello? She calls out, her voice trembling and thin in the vast emptiness. Sir, are you all right? Her words are swallowed by the night. No answer. Just the hollow, rhythmic drip of water from somewhere inside. Against her better judgment, she takes a hesitant step through the doorway. The smell of damp concrete and something else, something coppery and stale, hits her instantly. She's cleaned these restrooms hundreds of times, but tonight, I feel wrong. Alien. The short hallway seems to stretch on forever. The walls feeling narrower, like they're closing in. Her flashlight beam flickers, the light dancing erratically over the grimy tiles. As she moves deeper inside, a sudden sharp noise echoes from the very last stall. Metallic clank, loud and violent. She jumps, her heart leaping into her throat. Dale, if this is some kind of joke, it's not funny. Hey, she yells, her voice cracking with a mix of anger and fear. The accused stall door creaks open slowly, revealing nothing. The stall is completely empty. Relief wars with confusion. Is it just the wind? Then, as she turns to leave, her flashlight beam sweeps across the graffiti-covered wall next to the stall, and she freezes. There, scrawled in a wet, glistening substance that is horrifyingly not red paint, are 3 words. A message meant only for her. You're on camera. A new, profound horror sinks its claws into her. They're watching. They've been watching the whole time. The static on the monitor, the figures in the hall. It was all real. And before she can scream, before she can even think to run, every single light in the restroom goes out, plunging her into absolute suffocating darkness. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed that little descent into darkness. What do you think happens to Lauren next? Let me know your theories down in the comments below. If you like stories that keep you up at night, make sure to hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our next video. Stay safe out there, and I'll see you in the next one. The darkness inside the restroom was absolute, so thick and suffocating it felt like it had weight, and my flashlight flickered once, twice, then died completely. The air grew colder, heavier, pressing against my skin. The only sound was my own heartbeat, a frantic, uneven drum echoing in the tiled room. Hello? My voice was a timid squeak, swallowed by the oppressive silence. Then, a new sound joined the rhythm of my fear. Near the sinks, water began to drip. Drip. Out. Drip. Each drop landed like a hammer blow in the quiet. I had to get out. Taking a cautious step, I slid one hand along the cold, tiled wall, while my other fumbled desperately with the flashlight. My fingers were trembling so badly I almost dropped it. Finally, a weak beam cut through the darkness, and I instinctively pointed it at the mirror. My own wide-eyed reflection stared back. But for just a fraction of a second, I saw something else. Behind me in the reflection, another face. Pale, with hollow, watching eyes. I gasped and spun around. Nothing. Just the empty, dark restroom. The door I'd come through was still shut tight. My breath came in shallow, ragged bursts. I forced myself to move, my legs feeling like lead. I had to check the stalls. I pushed open the first door, empty. The second, empty. Each creak of the cheap metal hinges scraped against my raw nerves. Then the last one. As the door swung open, the sight inside made my blood run cold. My jacket, the one I'd left hanging in the staff room, was folded neatly on the toilet seat. Someone had been inside the gas station. Cans started shaking again, the flashlight beam dancing wildly across the walls. "It's fine," I whispered to myself, the words a flimsy shield against the rising panic. "You're just tired, Lauren. It's fine." Then, a sudden burst of static filled my earpiece. I'd forgotten I was still connected to the security system. "Lauren," a voice whispered through the crackle. I froze, so that wasn't Dale. This voice was lower, distorted, and disturbingly calm. "You shouldn't have come in here." That was it. I dropped the flashlight and bolted. Adrenaline surged through me as I slammed into the exit door, bursting out into the cool night air. The world outside felt unnervingly still, as if it was holding its breath, waiting. I sprinted toward the main entrance of the gas station, my only thought to get inside, lock the doors, and call for help. But as I peered through the glass, a new wave of terror washed over me. The security monitors inside all of them showed me just me standing alone in the darkness outside. All of them, except one, camera 4. It showed someone else, standing right behind me. With a choked cry, I whirled around. My eyes scanned the empty asphalt, seeing nothing but the shadow of the convenience store sign swaying in the gentle wind. I was alone, but I wasn't. My gaze fell to the wet ground. Faint shoe prints led away from the restroom door, not toward the road, but toward the dark woods behind the station. I should have gotten in my car right then and driven away as fast as I could. I knew I should have. But something about those prints held me captive. They were barefoot, and they were too small to belong to the man I'd seen earlier. They looked childlike. Then, a whisper drifted on the night air, so soft I almost thought I'd imagined it. "Lauren." It came from the direction of the woods. My chest tightened, a knot of pure, primal fear. Every instinct, every fiber of my being screamed at me to run. But I didn't. Against all reason, against all logic. I started walking toward the trees, toward the voice that called my name from the shadows. I had to know who or what was waiting for me in the dark. What do you think is waiting for Lauren in the woods? Let me know your theories down in the comments. And if you enjoyed this story and want to see what happens next, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more terrifying tales. Thanks for watching. The forest behind the gas station was a void, the kind of place where sound came to die. The moment I stepped past the tree line, the familiar drone of the highway just stopped. No cars, no wind, just a silence so thick it made my ears ring with a phantom hum. My phone's flashlight was pathetic, a weak little beam that barely pricked the inky blackness. Every tree looked identical tall, skeletal fingers reaching for a starless sky, their bark glistening with a cold, perpetual dampness. The footprints I'd been following were vanishing, melting into the wet soil. But if I angled the light just right, I could still make them out small, bare, and disturbingly fresh. I muttered to myself, trying to ground my racing thoughts. "This is insane, Lauren. You're following nothing." But I knew that was a lie. A whisper, faint and cold, had called my name from the trees. "Lauren, ... It sounded like a child, a little girl. Maybe 8 or 9. My chest seized up. Every instinct screamed at me to run back to the sickly fluorescent safety of the gas station. But something in that tiny voice held me captive. It was pleading, desperate. It needed help. So I pressed on, my steps now slow and deliberate, trying not to snap the brittle twigs under my boots. And then I saw it. Through the dense lattice of branches, a faint yellow glow flickered, like a lantern swaying in a non-existent breeze. My heart hammered against my ribs. Someone else was out here. As I crept closer, I realized it wasn't a lantern. It was an old, dented metal flashlight, half submerged in the thick mud, its beam shaking as if it had been dropped just moments ago. I knelt down, my fingers closing around the cold metal. It was still warm. That's when my light fell on it, a small, stuffed bear lying beside the flashlight. It was caked in mud, one of its button eyes missing. A wave of ice-cold recognition washed over me. I'd seen this bear before. It was in the lost and found drawer, back at the gas station, tucked away in a dusty Ziploc bag with a handwritten label. Found, Mile 17 rest stop. I shot to my feet, my head on a swivel, my light cutting frantic arcs through the darkness. "Who's there?" I called out, my voice trembling. The only answer was the suffocating stillness of the woods, a rustle right behind me. I spun around, the beam of my phone flashlight slashing across the trees. I caught a glimpse of something, a shape low to the ground, moving with an unnatural speed before it disappeared behind a thick oak. My pulse went into overdrive. "Hey!" I shouted, taking a stumbling step back. "I can hear you." The forest held its breath, offering no reply except the faint, mournful creak of ancient branches. And then, my light landed on something that made the air leave my lungs in a single painful gasp. Nailed to the trunk of a tree was a laminated flyer, warped and faded by the weather. My own handwriting, from a lifetime ago, stared back at me, missing. Julia Reynolds, age 9, last seen at mile 17 rest stop. Julia Reynolds. The name hit me like a physical blow. The cold case file I'd helped my uncle, a retired sheriff, review before the gas station closed for renovations. Ghost from the town's past. Stumbled back, my hand clutching the flyer, the paper crinkling in my trembling grip. This wasn't happening. Just as that thought crossed my mind, the forest changed. The light from my phone flickered violently, died, then sputtered back to life. But when it did, the world was different. The trees seemed to have multiplied, pressing in on me, their branches twisting into grotesque shapes. The air grew heavy, thick with a fog that hadn't been there seconds before. I spun around, desperate to find the path back, but it was gone. No hint of the highway, no distant glow, no sound from the world I had just left behind. It had been erased. My breathing hitched, turning into shallow, panicked pants. Okay, Lauren, calm down. Just calm down. Then the voice again, from the darkness directly ahead of me. Closer this time, impossibly close. "Please, help me." My light trembled as I raised it, and it caught movement. A pale figure standing motionless between two looming pines. Its head was tilted at an unnatural angle, and in its small hands, it clutched the same muddy, one-eyed teddy bear I'd seen on the ground. My voice was a choked whisper. "Julia?" The figure looked up, and for a single, heart-stopping second, I thought I saw real eyes looking back at my eyes that were tired, lost, and achingly human. Then the light from my phone went out, plunging me into absolute, suffocating darkness. I screamed. The light returned, but the world was still wrong. The trees were a cage of black iron bars against a bruised purple sky. The air was thick and smelled of wet earth and something else. Something sweet and decaying. Julia, or whatever she was, stood in the same spot, her face a pale oval in the gloom. The bear hung limply from her hand. I was frozen, my feet rooted to the spot. My mind was screaming, "Run," but my body wouldn't obey. I was trapped in her memory, her nightmare. "You came back," she whispered, her voice no longer pleading, but hollow, empty. "They all come back to the flyer." What do you mean?" I managed to stammer out. She took a slow step forward, the mud sucking at her bare feet. "The forest remembers? It doesn't let go. Not of me. Not of the ones who look for me." Her head tilted again, a slow, creaking motion. "You work at the gas station? Put the bear in the box?" It wasn't a question. I nodded, unable to speak. "I found it," she said. "The man with the shiny car dropped it. He told me he'd give me a ride. Said he knew my mom." A cold dread, colder than the forest air, settled deep in my bones. Knew this story. It was in the case file. The prime suspect, a traveling salesman with a silver sedan who was never located. "He lied," Julia whispered, her voice cracking. "He brought me here." She pointed a small, pale finger deeper into the woods. "He's still here too. The forest took him, just like it took me. Sometimes I see him, watching from between the trees. He's afraid of the light." She looked down at the old flashlight still clutched in my other hand. That was his. My fingers went numb, and I almost dropped it. "Why? Why are you showing me this?" I asked, my voice barely audible. "Because you have the flyer," she said, her dead eyes locking onto mine. "You have the memory. The forest needs a memory to keep the loop going. My memory is fading. I'm getting tired." The fog swirled around her, and for a moment her form seemed to flicker, to become translucent. "You have to take it," she pleaded, her voice regaining that desperate edge. You have to remember for me." She held out the muddy teddy bear, an offering, a curse. My mind raced. This was a trap. If I took the bear, I'd be taking her place. I would become the ghost of Mile 17, forever replaying this nightmare, luring the next curious soul into the woods. But if I didn't, what would happen to her? What would happen to me? "No," I whispered, shaking my head, taking a step back. "Can't." Her face crumpled. The illusion of a lost little girl shattered, replaced by something ancient and furious. The air grew impossibly cold. A shriek tore from her throat, a sound that wasn't human, a sound of pure rage and despair that echoed through the twisted trees. The fog thickened, swirling around me, blinding me. I felt a phantom weight in my hand, something small and soft and damp. I looked down. The muddy bear was in my grasp. I hadn't taken it. It had been given. Julia was gone. The flyer was gone. The only thing left was the oppressive darkness, the weight of the bear in my hand, and a new, terrifying whisper in my own mind. It was my voice, but not my words. Plea directed at the distant, forgotten highway. "Please, help me." And I knew with a certainty that chilled me to my very soul that I would stand in this forest, this endless night, until someone else came looking, until someone else answered the call. Have you ever felt that unsettling sense of déjà vu? That chilling feeling that you've lived a moment before? What if that feeling wasn't just a trick of the mind? What if it was a warning? Tonight we delve into a story that blurs the line between the hunter and the hunted, between reality and a nightmare you can never wake up from. This is the story of Mile 17. Our story begins with Lauren, a young woman with a kind heart and a heavy conscience. Driving late one night, she pulls into the eerily quiet Mile 17 rest stop. The flickering neon sign of the gas station casts long dancing shadows across the empty parking lot. It's the kind of place you only stop at when you have no other choice. Inside, pinned to a cluttered bulletin board, a faded flyer catches her eye. It's a missing person report. A little girl, no older than 7, with bright eyes and a shy smile. Her name is Julia Reynolds. The flyer says she was last seen near these woods 6 months ago. A wave of sympathy washes over Lauren. She can't just drive away. Tucking the flyer into her pocket, she grabs her flashlight and heads towards the dark tree line, calling out Julia's name into the oppressive silence. The forest is a labyrinth of ancient trees, their branches like gnarled fingers reaching for her. The air grows cold, and a strange, low mist begins to curl around her ankles. The deeper she goes, the more the woods seem to come alive, whispering secrets just beyond her hearing. She calls out again, "Julia, are you out here?" Her voice sounds small, swallowed by the immense darkness. Suddenly, a twig snaps nearby. Lauren freezes, her heart pounding. She sweeps her flashlight beam across the trees, and there, just for a second, she sees it. A small figure, clutching a teddy bear, darting behind an old oak tree. Lauren whispers, her voice trembling with a mix of hope and fear. She takes a step forward, then another, her flashlight beam chasing the fleeting shadow. "It's okay, I'm here to help you." She follows the sound of rustling leaves, deeper and deeper into the woods. The path disappears. The air grows thick, heavy with the smell of damp earth and something else. Something unsettlingly sweet. Then, a blinding flash of light erupts, engulfing everything. For a moment, the world is pure, searing white. And then, just as suddenly, darkness. When the light returns, Lauren finds herself on the forest floor, her head spinning. Her pulse hammers in her ears. Flashlight buzzes weakly, its beam cutting through a dense fog that wasn't there before. Her palms are caked in mud, and a sharp pain shoots up from her wrist like she'd fallen hard. She pushes herself up, looking around frantically. The little girl is gone. The stuffed bear is gone. But the missing flyer? It's still clutched in her hand. Only now, something is terribly wrong. The paper isn't damp or torn, looks brand new, as if it had just been printed. And there, beneath the name Julia Reynolds, a new line of text has appeared, crisp and black. Last seen with Lauren Brooks. A cold dread seeps into her bones. "What the hell?" she mutters, her voice barely a whisper. In a panic, she tears the flyer into pieces, letting the fragments flutter to the ground. The forest feels different now. It feels alive, breathing, the very air pulsing with an invisible tension. She could swear she hears her own voice echoing faintly from the trees, repeating the girl's name over and over. Just then, her phone buzzes in her pocket. She fumbles for it, her hand shaking. The screen glows in the dark. One new voicemail. The sender's name makes her blood run cold. Julia Reynolds. That's impossible. Julia disappeared 6 months ago. Her thumb hovers over the screen, hesitating, before she finally presses play. The message begins with soft, broken static. Then, a faint voice pushes through the noise, a child's whisper that seems to come from a great distance. "Lauren, you never left." The whisper is followed by the sound of a child's laughter, echoing from somewhere deep in the woods around her. The phone slips from her trembling hands and clatters to the ground. Panic takes over. She grabs her flashlight and runs, not caring which direction she's going, just needing to get out. The beam slices through the fog as she crashes through the undergrowth, her breath coming in short, ragged bursts. Finally, she bursts into a small clearing and freezes. There it is, the rest stop. But it's not the way she remembers it. The building looks ancient, the paint peeled and blistered, the windows shattered. The lights that should have been illuminating the parking lot are dark and dead. And her car. Her car is there, but it's covered in layers of dust and fallen leaves, looking as if it had been abandoned for years. "No, that's not real," she whispers, her mind refusing to accept what she's seeing. A faint flickering light from inside the station catches her eye. It looks like the security monitors are still working. She creeps closer, drawn by a morbid curiosity. Her own distorted reflection stretches across a grimy window pane. And then she sees it. Inside the monitor room, staring back at her from one of the screens, is herself. Same face, same jacket, but the Lauren on the screen looks utterly terrified. She stumbles back, a choked sob escaping her lips. "I'm dreaming. This isn't real." A loud, sharp buzz of static cuts her off, erupting from the gas station's old PA system. Then, a familiar voice speaks, calm but hollow, echoing across the desolate lot. "Attention. Missing person report. Lauren Brooks, last seen at mile 17 rest stop." The voice is her own. Her legs give out. Leapt. She collapses to her knees on the cracked asphalt, clutching her head as tears blur her vision. No, I'm here. I'm right here." She screams at the derelict building, but her own voice comes back to her distorted, distant, as if the world itself is folding in on her. In the corner of her eye, she sees movement inside the gas station. It's the shadow of a child's figure, standing by the door, its small hand pressed against the glass. The figure is smiling faintly. Lauren scrambles to her feet, trembling, and stumbles towards the door. She grabs the handle, but it doesn't budge. It's locked solid. She looks at her reflection in the glass again, but it's changed. Her reflection is now standing behind the child inside the station. Its expression is empty, its hand resting gently on the child's shoulder. Then, slowly, the little girl's mouth moves, forming silent words. Lauren leans closer, her breath fogging the glass, trying to read her lips. And in that horrifying moment, she understands. The girl wasn't asking for help. She was showing her the truth. Lauren hadn't followed Julia into the woods. Julia had been leading Lauren back to where she'd always been, the rest stop. The missing reports, the recordings, the voice on the PA system. It was all about her. Lauren was the one who disappeared that night. She had never left mile 17. Thank you for joining me on this journey into the shadows. If you enjoyed this story, do not forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more tales that will haunt your thoughts long after the screen goes dark. Until next time, stay safe, and maybe think twice before stopping at that lonely rest stop on the highway. The highway was empty that night. The only sound was the wind howling through the trees, carrying faint echoes of something that sounded almost human, like laughter or maybe just static. My headlights sliced through the thick fog as I pulled into the abandoned gas station at mile 17. A shiver ran down my spine, but it wasn't just from the cold. My breath clouded the air as I stepped out of the car. It felt exactly the same as it had all those years ago. The cracked sign, the single buzzing light that somehow still worked, that familiar smell of rust and rain. I wasn't supposed to come back here. Everyone told me not to, but I had to know. I had to understand what really happened that night. Inside, the air was heavy and still. The walls were stained with years of neglect. few forgotten flyers clung stubbornly to a corkboard. As I got closer, I saw they were all missing posters. Strangers' faces stared out at me, frozen in time. And then, right in the middle, my own face stared back. Lauren Meyers, missing since October 12th, 2017. My stomach twisted into a knot. It didn't make sense. My trembling fingers brushed the edges of the paper, as if I were touching my own ghost. Why? I whispered to the empty room. I survived this. I remember leaving. A sudden, sharp click echoed from the dusty counter. The old CRT monitor flickered to life, its cold blue glow cutting through the darkness. One by one, the security cameras stuttered on, each showing a different, grainy view of the station. And then, I heard my own voice coming from the speakers. My voice from that night. "Julia, are you still there?" I froze. That was my old broadcast, the last one I ever made before everything went silent. On the screen, I watched a younger version of myself pacing back and forth, desperate, terrified. Then the camera feed glitched, cutting to a view of the woods just behind the station. I saw two silhouettes in the grainy footage. One was the missing girl, Julia, and the other was me. I was leading her deeper into the forest. I whispered, my voice barely audible. "That's not possible." Just then, the image of the little girl on the screen turned to face the camera. Her eyes were hollow, but she had a faint, chilling smile. Her voice, soft and clear, came through the speakers. She followed me. "Now it's your turn." The lights in the room burst, plunging everything into absolute darkness. I stumbled backward, crashing into a set of shelves. I couldn't catch my breath. From somewhere behind me, a faint radio hum began to play. It was my old broadcast again, looping endlessly. "This is Lauren Meyers. If anyone can hear me, I think I'm lost." The sound started to distort, like someone was twisting the dial, pulling the signal out of range. Then another voice joined in. It was my voice, but older, deeper, broken with static. It said, "You never left, Lauren." I spun around. In the fractured glass of the window, my reflection stared back, a faint smile playing on its lips. It looked so real, too real. My reflection raised its hand, but my own arms were still pinned at my sides. It whispered, its voice a ghostly echo of my own. "You're still on air." Static screamed from the speakers, a deafening roar. The monitors flickered back to life, showing scenes from the forest, the gas station, my car. Everything looping endlessly, the same night, over and over again. And then, just as suddenly, silence. When I opened my eyes, the world had changed. The sun was rising, casting long shadows through the trees. The gas station looked cleaner, almost new. My car was parked neatly, as if I had just arrived for a morning shift. I stepped outside. The air was warm, peaceful. For the first time in years, I felt free. A wave of relief washed over me. But then, in the distance, I heard a faint siren. Two police cruisers pulled up to the gas station, their red and blue lights flashing silently. Officers got out, their radios crackling with static. I waved at them, a huge smile on my face. "Over here, I'm here." But they didn't look at me. They moved right past me, their flashlights scanning the ground. One officer stopped and knelt down beside the back door. His voice was quiet, careful. "Got a body here, female. Mid-30s, looks like. She's been here a long time." My smile faded. I stepped closer, a cold dread creeping up my spine. The officer lifted his light, and the beam fell on the face of the person on the ground. It was my face, pale, covered in dust, my eyes wide open. The other officer sighed, his voice low. "Another mile 17 case. Same date as all the others." I staggered back as the air grew colder, and the forest fell silent. Then, the radios in both patrol cars crackled to life, broadcasting on an old, forgotten frequency. The signal was faint, but the voice was clear. "This is Lauren Meyers, live from mile 17. If anyone can hear me." The officers froze. One of them turned toward the cars, his face a mask of confusion. "Who the hell is broadcasting on that channel?" The voice looped, echoing through the trees like a ghost. I looked toward the woods. There, standing in the morning haze, was the little girl, Julia. She was still holding her stuffed bear, a gentle, knowing smile on her face. "Come on," she said softly. They can't hear you anymore." I hesitated, my mind reeling. The girl held out her small hand. And though I didn't understand why or how any of this was possible, I reached out and took it. Together, we walked into the forest. Fog swallowed us whole, and the static on the radio finally faded away. By the next morning, the Mile 17 rest stop was completely gone, as if it had never existed. All that was left was an old, rusted sign. Half buried in the dirt, Mile 17 rest stop, closed since 2017, and somewhere, out on a forgotten AM radio band, a faint voice still whispers into the darkness. You're listening to KM17 Radio, where the night never ends. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey into the mystery of Mile 17. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more tales from the shadows. Stay safe out there, and we'll see you in the next video.